Good evening and welcome to another Tata Steel Kolkata Literary Meet virtual session. Today we have with us a very special guest, someone who has been associated with the Literary Meet for many years, Anuja Chauhan. Thank you, Anuja, for joining us today. Before we have Anuja and Sukanya on the screen, let me give you a brief introduction, although it's not needed. Anuja Chauhan has worked in advertising for over 17 years and is credited with many popular campaigns, including Pepsi's Nothing Official About It, Ye Dil Mange More, Mera Number Kab Aayega, Oye Bubbly, and Dar Ke Aage Jeet Hai. She's the author of 5 best-selling novels, all of which have been acquired by major Bombay studios. She lives outside Bangalore with her 3 children, a varying number of cats and dogs, and her husband, television producer Niret Alva, who's a member of various clubs that shall remain unnamed here. Anuja will be in conversation with Sukanya Das, a member of Team Game Plan. She's never seen without a book in her hand and takes pride in being a completely undiscerning reader. They will be discussing Anuja's latest novel, Club You to Death. I've had the pleasure of reading the book already, and I have to say it's a thrilling read. So sit back and enjoy the conversation and get your hands on a copy of the book soon. Over to you, Sukanya.
Thank you, Prakriti. And is Anuja here? Hi, Anuja. It's apparently World Storytelling Day today, and we are delighted to have with us a storyteller of the first order because that's what Anuja is, a fantastic, wonderful storyteller. And here's her latest story, Club You to Death, a book that I've absolutely loved reading. Anuja, can you hear me? Is there a problem with the
Oh God,
system or
it's
the
a,
network?
I have plenty signal.
For those who are listening in, just give us a minute or two while we sort this out. Probably a network issue at Anuja's end. Till that is sorted, okay. Okay. Um, inst-
Wow.
okay. Good to see you. Can you
Hi,
can you
can you hear me? There was
I can
something
hear
wrong
you.
with the. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
I can hear you and I can see you, but I had to change the Wi-Fi thing, so I missed your introduction. But I'll just assume. So I don't know what you said. I don't know what you asked me,
That's
but I can
okay.
see you now.
I'm sure nobody is going to grudge us a repetition of the introduction. So, because I was just kind of reiterating that today is apparently World Storytelling Day, and Kolkata Literary Meet is extremely delighted to have you here because first and foremost you are an absolutely wonderful storyteller, and I've been spending some time with your latest book, your latest story over the last week, and it's been quite a thrill of a ride. Um, so we get into comfortable now, okay?
Yeah, I'm just wondering if you can see me because all I can see in my frame is just my nose. So I'm wondering if people are only seeing my nose.
No, we can see you now. We can see you
You can
just
see
fine.
me? Okay, okay, okay. Because in the frame that I see, I can't see anything at all. So I was like wondering if it was cropped. Sorry, sorry. Too many hygiene questions.
You're no, that's okay. You're
Yeah,
good now, but I think you might need to move a little bit more to your right.
I'm good. I'm good.
Okay, all right.
To my
So should I go on?
Yeah, please. Sorry for that.
Don't worry about it. You're squarely in the frame now. So, Anuja, this
Oh,
one thing that I wanted to ask you because, I've been obviously, when we prep for a little session, we do a little bit of reviewing the reviews, so to speak, and what people have said about you. And I have been reading your books for some time. Your books have always been appreciated, I think, more for their style than story, right? And words like frothy and lively, and all of this is said in a very complimentary way about your books. But with this particular book, Club You to Death, for me as a reader, it was completely story first. The style, I just kind of noticed it later. Wh- What do you, I mean, was this like a planned departure? Was this something that came about? How did this happen?
no, not really. I think I follow pretty much the same, the same strategy or writing process or craft like I always do. I start the book very excited about characters. I start the book really excited about the people. I spend a lot of time thinking about what their names are, what their backgrounds are, where they come from, what is their speaking style, what's going on in their head, what are their flaws and all their little inner workings. I sort of really interested about that. And then once I start, getting comfortable with them and the way they think and move and react to certain situations. As the book goes along, naturally you get more involved with plot and story and so on. And towards the ending, so the balance stays more or less the equal subsequently after that. So yeah, I start off very excited about character and I end up very excited about plot.
Get it. One of the things about your writing is that you get your readers very engaged with your characters. And I think what you said just now kind of explains it because you start with character first. We might not often like who you're writing about or the character that you've created, but I can't just help hop along for the ride. Especially in this book, we see there is a cross section of Delhi folks, but there is this focus on a particular set of privileged, entitled people, right? And that's just about every kind of ism. You have somebody who's, quite a few people are sexist in this, definitely classist, etc., etc. But you just kind of get pulled in for the ride. Um, what as far as this book is concerned, was there a focus on making the characters a little more, let's say, real and unlikable, or did that just happen because of the setting and your plot?
I am always very fond of the people I write about. I always have a huge amount of affection for everybody. So if you say they're unlikable, then I feel a little hurt because I like everybody. I like absolutely everybody I write. It's very important for me to like everyone. And even if they're coming, even if they're saying obnoxious things, in my head, I'm saying, obviously he'll think like this or she'll think like this because this is the sort of person they are. So I like to feel them very intimately acquainted with these people, and that to me at least everyone is always very likable. Even if there's a murderer, from the murderer's point of view, I'm like, yeah, but that person totally had it coming and therefore I was totally justified. So I'm always very fond of everyone. And I just find that even in my observation of people, when I was younger, I used to be more judgmental. As I grow older, I am just more entertained. I'm entertained by people. Even if I find them obnoxious, I tend to, when I'm writing a character, look at it from that person's point of view. And from that point of view, it always, to me, seems completely justified the way they're behaving.
That is one of the things that I did notice about your other books, and especially this once we actually know who did the murder and why they did it. Of course, no spoilers. But while you say you're very intimately involved with your characters, of course you have to be because you birthed them, right? You created them.
Yeah.
From a reader, yeah. So from a reader's perspective, at least to me, in this book, you bring them to life with brilliance. There's no denying that. But it's like you're a dispassionate observer. There is, you're not merciless, neither are you merciful, right? So it's kind of like you're this, the observer is like this really clear Belgian mirror, right?
Huh.
Uh, how do
I
you
enjoy
unveil,
that. Yeah, yeah.
you know, so
I
there is
I do that, and I yeah. It's more of a mirror, as you rightly say. It's just like, okay, there's this sort of person, there's this kind of person, this is where he's coming from, this is where she's coming from. They all gather here, and I just present them as I see them. Like this person is like this, so here is this person, flaws and all, and no apologies for the sort of person they are, and here they are in the book. So, yeah, it's a mirror. It's not rose tinted glasses.
yeah. So that I find extremely interesting, especially because you defended the likability of your character so much. I won't say the likability, but the relatability, because
I like
because
everyone. I like everyone.
no, no. But the point is that it is definitely something I think as a reader to be noted and to be appreciated. That with that level of involvement, you can still step back and, in fact, present them with a sort of journalistic neutrality which doesn't exist in journalism today, if you know what I mean. But fantastically observed, and so that's just something I wanted to say. um, you know how would again, I come back to style, I'll come back to characters in a while, but I come back to style again. This whole way you carry people along this flow, just on for the ride. How much of your background in advertising really carries into your novel writing when you're writing your stories? Pithy headlines,
It's,
pithy
see,
captions.
yeah, yeah. No, advertising is my grounding. I can't fight it. That is what I've been trained to write, and I've fought in those trenches for 17 years. So everything I write works on three axes. I write visually. I have to show you visually. I would like you to imagine visually what's going on. Of course, you hear the words that are being said. And there's also a soundtrack. On the third axis, there's a soundtrack playing. There's sounds, and there is music, and there is internal dialogue, and all that. So that's advertising training, because when you write an ad script, you do think along these three axes. So I do that. Advertising training is also very much about not boring people, not slackening the pace, and sort of always coming back with a punch, keeping people interested, saying something either funny or insightful. On literally on every page there should be something, some little sparkle that brightens it up in the narrative. So that is just my training. And of course, as a reader, that's the kind of stuff I like reading as well. I like a book to be both unputdownable and rereadable. These are my two criteria. I don't care about anything else. Now, picking up, I don't want to put it down. I want to finish it that night, or at least, if not that night, I wake up in the morning and finish it before I brush my teeth. For me as a reader. And secondly, I love books that I can pick up anytime, any day, and then just open it from anywhere. And, just have that little reread. So those are the two things I work towards.
Uh, you know, your books are very fast paced, and then one thing that's there, I'm reading. This is a book that I'm reading of yours after a bit. Like read your last books about 5-6 years back, or 3-4 years back. So it is very fast paced, and it's very quippy. It's like quips here, quips there, and it doesn't seem at all forced or kind of imposed. And the other question that I wanted to ask you kind of leads from this. There's quite a bit of Desi C words in the book, and Gen Z, let's say, bad language. But you've done it very nicely. You've done it very naturally. And I have to ask, how easy or not easy was it? I just have to ask that.
No, all my books have spoken language presented the way people speak. Because for me, dialogue is really important. I work hard on dialogue. I love writing dialogue. Again, because of my shallow day job in advertising, I have a lot of shallow, quippy friends. And my husband says that, you'll hang with anybody if they can make you laugh. You don't care about their morals or about the value system or whether they're there for you when you'll be in a hard place. If people are entertaining and witty, you'll be like, yeah, 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 let me hang with this crowd. And it's true. I enjoy banter and quippy repartee and people being clever, and people having comic timing. I hang with those kind of people. I enjoy that kind of conversation. And as far as language is concerned, if it's occasionally salty or if it's occasionally a little potty mouth, it's because the character talks like that. It's not the narrative talking like that. If there is a person who comes from a certain space, and he will talk like someone who comes from that space, or she will too. So I don't. For me, I'm chasing authenticity, and I'm also chasing a laugh. So it's kind of maybe overcorrected to the point of going for a bit of a laugh, but I do try to write as authentically as how people actually talk, how they interrupt each other, how they switch languages, how it's very idiomatic or it's rhythmic or there's a certain cadence to a conversation. There are nobody uses full words. No one says, I cannot do this. They like, can't do this, so it I try to do that just to make it as natural as possible, as like a soundtrack in your head when you're reading.
Yeah, and you've done that very well, which is why I asked. Because, and as far as banter and quipping is concerned, that's something that happens with the background in advertising or in editorial rooms. You live for wordplay. You live out those long hours because your colleagues are snapping words, right back at you, and you kind of think in slogans and headlines and captions, and that shows.
Yeah,
That
yeah.
shows because, yeah. Um, so that's absolutely there. The word I would use for your writing, like I said, I've been, of course, we do a little bit of reading up on what reviews have come out, what people have said. I found this word used a lot for you, the person, charismatic, but I don't want to go there. I find your writing very charismatic. Maybe it is the thought, like you said, everything that you said, the thought that you put into your characters, the plot, the naturalness of dialogue, the way people are talking, and like you said, the soundtrack to it all. We do have a lot of, of course, writers paint pictures with their words, but now that you mentioned it, there is a soundtrack. There is that soundtrack which is not a monotone. There are these cadences, and I think your dialogues add to that. But uh, all that together brings me to, like I said, what I would use for your writing, which is extremely charismatic. And I know I did use the word unlikable for most of your characters in this book, but you have the Kia Loki gang and you have the Siadia Pia. You've talked about the Sia Pia Kia, group or clique
Gia
in
Gang. Yeah, yeah.
the battle for Bitona as well.
You know,
It's the same names, but what I wanted to say is that even the Siagia Pier we see, there is that moment of pathos at her birthday party when it's just part of a sentence. It's just one fragment where you say she's staring at her phone and tears streaming down her face, and that just just reached out
yeah.
to me. And there are a lot of
At
these
your
little.
own birthday party.
I know at her own birthday party,
At
she's
your
thrown
own
this.
birthday party, she's crying.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
that just kind of brought home loneliness, loss, maybe the not so privileged of the privileged lot. It was just very moving, and this is just a character who's there for like what, 5 sentences in the entire book. So
I was very happy with one line I wrote in that party scene, and my children said it was very inauthentic and I shouldn't have put it there for a cheap laugh. But to me, it felt very correct. When this CI is so sad on her birthday, and this guy says, "Come on, yeah, cheer up, yeah, come on, I'll show you some midget porn," which I thought was really funny. I think I'm the only one in my house who thought it was funny, but I was very amused. And yeah, anyway, sorry, random aside.
no, 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 it's not random at all. I mean, I don't think we all really know what is authentic. I mean, there are so many authenticities, and which you just showed very beautifully in this book, which is full of, which is a posh club, fancy parties, entitled snobs, if I may say so. It's just there are different levels of authenticity. But one character I would like to talk about, who's absolutely my favorite, and utterly likable and adorable, and maybe not very authentic, is of course ACP Bhavani. Sadly, he's everything that we think that a policeman is not today. No, that's, that's sadly.
No, but I just so Kanya, for me, I mean, somebody was asking me, and I said, honestly, the only kind of policemen I've met are like ACP Bhavani Singh. I lived in Gurgaon for most of my life, and everybody, every some genial Haryanvi uncle comes around with a pot belly. That is the kind of cop I've always met. The kind of cops I've actually never met are the ones I've seen in the movies. I've never met like a Dabang cop. I've never met like a Singham cop. I've never met those kind of guys with these tortured backstories and they're fighting some addiction and there's some dark shit going on in their life. And usually the cops are meek is some very homely pot belly chap. He'll come in and he'll talk to me nicely. I have a very nice Uncle G vibe. So to me, actually, he's quite real. The ones that are not real are the ones that have become sort of fake real in our lives nowadays. These kind of people who I'm seeing in OTT and I'm seeing in the movies or even in books.
Anuj, I agree with you, but I don't in the sense that I probably didn't clarify what I was saying. What I meant is he isn't real in the sense of his personality traits. I mean, the physical stereotype is what we see, Uncle G's, right? And who are
So,
sweet and whatever. But the compassion that he brings to it, the lack of officiousness, might we say, in spite of using the royal V all the time. Your Ammaji in Battle for Bittora also
yeah.
does that. So that is, I mean, he's an
Yeah.
utterly adorable character, and I really hope we are going to see more of him. Are we? Before we go on for the rest of the conversation, I hope we see more of him.
I think so. My publishers are saying that there is a little bit of a demand for ACP Bhavani. And yeah, he is. I think, like you're saying, perhaps, the fact that he's a father of daughters and
Very
his English teacher wife has made him a feminist. Is probably earning about 1.5 lakhs a month and living in his little house, all perks included. It works out to that much before taxes. That so his CTC would probably, I don't know, be around 80,000 rupees, and he lives in his flat with his English teacher wife, and he has a sort of genial quality. And To me, again, I felt that was authentic and correct. But yeah, you're right. Maybe not very. Um, Maybe a little idealistic again, a little idealized, a little rose tinted. But ACP Bhavani seems to be finding a lot of love and shall definitely go hunting again with Inspector Padam Kumar.
Yeah, because ACP Bhavani is who we want in our police stations and in our
Oh,
command
no.
centers.
Oh, nice. Huh?
That's
You go there
that's
and you say, "ये हो गया sir," and he'll say, "ठीक है, मैं कुछ करता हूँ." True.
so वैसे ही चाहिए. And we also need the Padam Kumars to grow up. I loved, PK. He's again so entitled in a completely different way. So this is what also struck me, that you have different social strata, socio-economic strata, different levels of entitlement. Where through PK you show how. Even if to our eyes somebody seems to be not from a very privileged background, just by virtue of sex and uniform and fair complexion and 6 footer. I just love that description. He is entitled. He is privileged.
He's like, he's up, right? He's sitting on top of the heap. He's right up there. He's
Absolutely.
higher than all of us.
I know, because he's
Yeah,
got a
yeah.
uniform, he's 6 footer, he's fair, and I mean, the way he resents work and this homely ACP getting in the way of his bride hunting is just amazing. That again is that clear eye, which isn't judgmental but is a very dispassionate, and I would say not ungenerous but unforgiving observer, which I enjoy. I mean, it's not in that, I love that bit of, because it's also, this threads into social commentary. I mean, I don't know if I If I'm supposed to just read it as just a whodunit and then maybe a whydunit, but there is quite a bit of social commentary in this, and it's there in almost every page. Or am I reading too much into this? Anuja, we've lost you, I think. Anuja? We'll just wait for Anuja to find her way back again. Whoever's listening in, a little patience for technical glitches, please. This is your time to think up questions for Ms. Chauhan, in case there are any that you have about her previous books. We will be taking questions in about 15 minutes. Of course, if she joins back, which I'm sure she will. And so do get your questions ready. If you're already sending them in on our YouTube page or Kolkata Retreat live comments, I shall be seeing them in a bit and will pass on your questions to her. They can be about any of her previous books, none of her previous books, her advertising, or anything else that you might want to ask. I've been told to go on talking, and so I shall. Mm, let's see, there I can't see comments. Let me see if there are any questions that I can take. Okay. So there's a Debujit Shaha who's going yawn and crazy. So yeah, yawn back. Nothing else. So to just give you a little, we've been talking in a way which basically is because she's written the book and I've read the book. But to just give you an outline of what the book is about, it's set in this, the characters or the cast of characters are this really the circle of really privileged and entitled people living in Delhi. And the scene of the crimes actually, is this really posh Delhi club. It's called the DTC, the Delhi Turf Club, if I remember correctly. And this is, the tension heightens because this is right before club elections, very fiercely fought elections for club president. And if any of our, those of you who are watching and you know about club politics, you know what how intense club politics can get. Anuja, welcome back.
I'm so sorry. The light went, so the Wi-Fi cut off. Sorry.
That's okay. I was kind of trying to tell whoever's listening in about the setting of the book, a little bit about where it's set, just in case they haven't read it as yet. So yes, we were talking of ACP Bhavani, Padan Kumar, actually,
Yes.
about
Yeah.
being top of the heap, and the fact about the way there is also a contrast between the character of Padam Kumar and Ganga. Young, good looking, separated by probably from the same socioeconomic strata, but with completely different futures in front of them, primarily due to the circumstance of their gender. Right. So that's also there. I mean, Ganga's also in later books. I hope she's around as well, because I really would like to know what happens to Ganga and if somewhere that aligns with any other character we've read about in this book. But coming back to ACP Bhavani, uh, you know, you say you've met the physical type, the avuncular type, the affable type. What about the other things that make ACP Bhavani what he is? That sharp mm, skill at understanding people, motivations, what makes people tick, sheer investigative legwork.
Hmm.
Is that just idealized, or I mean, have you seen bits and pieces
I
everywhere? I really
think,
hope you have.
no, like my grandfather, my Nana ji was in the police, and I guess I'm tapping back to faint memories of him and his brother, who was also in the police, and they were this kind of very gentle policeman with many daughters. What I think, what I like about ACP Bhavani, and which I think is achievable if we want, is that this is a person who pays great attention. He pays
Absolutely.
it. He listens to you. There's nothing more seductive than somebody who's actually listening. People don't listen nowadays. Everybody, people's attention spans are so fragmented. There's so many distractions, and nobody is actually focusing 100% looking you in the eyes and saying, "Tell me." And having the therav, and just having just the gravitas to stay and then hear you out properly. And which is why out of his four golden rules, his first golden rule is that whipping people will loosen their tongues, but listening to them will open their hearts. And that's what he does. That's his thing. He's got that very like, here is the chai and here is the pakodi. I'm sitting here, tell me. So I think we don't get that. And all of us, we all crave that nowadays, somebody who's listening with 100% attention. So I think that, and that's why I said that if ACP Bhavani Singh was an Avenger and had a superpower, it would be radiating waves of sympathy, which he does. Like, he's a sympathetic audience and non-judgmental, and you can listen to him, and he listens to you till you're done, till you're empty. So that's really what he's got. And that's why I said that, it's such a low pressure area. And I do believe that. And I've seen that in life. If you create a low pressure area around you, then things come floating down to you. Like how they taught us in class 7 geography, that hot winds of information come whooshing down on you if you make yourself a low pressure area and you're sitting there with your chai and your pakodi out, waiting, saying, "Come have tea, tell me what you got." And that is literally what he does. So for me, that is where he comes from.
I'm going to take that class 7 geography lesson to heart and probably try and employ it as a parenting tactic. I'll see if it works. If it
It
does, I'll
will
let you
work. It will work 100%.
know.
Depends on
Okay.
how old the kids are. It could be hot chocolate if they're younger, and it could be a glass of white wine if they're older.
If they're older, yeah, okay. So I will get back to you on whether it works. I'll have to work on making this low pressure area. But we have this trope of good cop, bad cop. What is fantastic about ACP Bhavani and the way you've written him is that he's not playing good cop. Whenever people play that routine, policemen are said to play the good cop, bad cop strategy, right? He's not playing. He's
Mm.
not play acting. There is this amazing authenticity and genuineness in his goodness, in his earnestness and his sincerity, which was, which really came through to me. And I said, no one's playing here. He truly is a good cop. And congratulations on writing a cop who, even if we think is, idealized, I mean, that's who we want. So, I mean, congratulations on that. And please do give us more of ACP Bhavani. The other thing that was which struck me a lot was his relationship with his wife, Shalini. You know,
Hmm.
uh, again, I mean, the devotion of a long-term couple, of people who've been with each other and who are supposed, different. The description that we get of Shalini is that she's beautiful, she's a teacher or a professor, and just probably a little more posh than he is. But the understanding, is just something that made me smile. Carried me through. Any thoughts on this particular relationship and what you wanted to bring to the book with it?
Well, I think that Shalini must have had many admirers. you know.
Yeah, sure.
Mary admires. She was beautiful. She's an English teacher. She's clearly a cut above this person socially. I think there might have been some very smarmy, good looking fellows with good lines, and there might have been all kinds of chaps. But I think Bhavani won out because he had this quality that we've been discussing, that Shalini, being a woman of discernment, would have valued and picked. And I also find that, like in many good long-term marriages that I've observed, people who've been married 50 years, 60 years, there is they talk about everything, and that is why I said that, like everyone in the department would have a heart attack, but this man is discussing everything with his wife, because again there is this whole thing of that the wife never knows what a cop husband is doing, and that you can't spill your secrets and whatever. But here these two is like is full unloading is happening. He knows about everything that's happening in the school. She knows about everything that's happening in in whatever he's investigating. And to me, again, if it's a good marriage, that would naturally happen. You are going to be each other's helpmeet, and sort of sounding board, and a little recharge plug of sorts for your thoughts. To me, it felt, I don't plan these things out, I like, as I write it, it's more feeling and more intuition, and saying, okay, this is the zone, then this is definitely going to be the vibe, this will be the way it'll work in his home life. If he's this sort of man who has these qualities, then this is the woman that he would probably be with. So again, it's more intuition there.
And probably such a harmonious home life would make lives of policemen in our country a little easier. I also had that thought. Which again, like you said, it's about feeling. Now, I know this is a whodunit and this is a thriller. It's a departure from your usual romance novels. There may not be a lot of romance in this book, Anuja, but there's a whole lot of love. There's a whole lot of love in the book, and that again touched me in the sense that you have Akash and his lady love, you have the ACP and Shalini, and you have the Khannas.
Yes, yes. Oh, I like the Khannas. Yeah.
So, so you see, I mean, again, to me as a
The
reader,
Puranas. Puranas.
yes, sorry, my mistake. I wrote Khuranas and I'm reading Khannas.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, the Khuranas, Urvashi and Mukesh, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So, Muki. So the thing is, so this was not something that I expected from quick read. It's not something that I expected from a thriller, and it just this went against my expectations and taught me to not come into something with preconceived notions, and it's just the book is suffused with a lot of very real relationships, and that is fantastic. The Khuranas, yeah, the Khuranas. Any thoughts? Anything that you want to say? Because again, there is this woman who's a cut above, right?
Yeah. Mhm.
And there is a pattern to it, the Bhavani and Shalini's relationship, and Mr. Khurana and Mrs. Khurana. Um, any thoughts on that? I mean, did that just happen that they were kind of similar marriages?
Oh, did you think that?
Yeah,
Um,
you realize that it's similar. Yeah, I mean, people saying
um,
that how did this woman even marry this man? And
hmm.
definitely chakkar chal raha
I
hoga,
think,
right?
no, to me, Bhavani's marriage is definitely a love marriage, and I think the Khurana's marriage is an arranged marriage. And there is, I think, for me, Mukesh Khurana was again somebody that I had huge affection for, and the fact, and I think there was some line which finally didn't make it to the final book, where Cookie Katoch, who gets to have all these little Vishesh Tikpani on everybody, says
Yes.
something about, he's so ugly, but in that moment, Muki, inner beauty is also something, because he was glowing. And for me, for me, I did like him very much. And for me, it just boils down to liking people, and I like Muki Khurana, and I thought that he's so, he's like, yeah, you're right. I mean, he's like a plain man with a beautiful woman, and which is the same you can say for Bhavani and his wife as well. So there is that similarity. I have tried to show different kinds of relationships, though. Our Bambi Tony is definitely a cut above everybody else. I think Ganga also is. I love that whole thing between Padam Kumar and Ganga, and how he thinks he's so superior, and he thinks that this is a woman that he can have absolutely no emotions for. But Bhavani is smart enough to know that maybe something will happen there. So, I mean, yeah, it's just trying to get across different kinds of equations. For me, Mukesh Khurana is a good husband eventually. This is someone, he's. I feel maybe I'm trying to say something about the choices that girls make and the kind of men that they pick to be with. Where actually Muki Khurana is a good husband. He's hugely non-judgmental. He's there. He's doing his best to keep his wife. He's not crucifying her for rumors. He's a good accepting man. Eventually, I feel.
There's a
Again, no
lovely
spoilers of what everybody is doing for each other for the sake of true love in the book, but
There's a lovely line when you describe their Sunday. They spend their Sunday talking about a lot of things, about
yeah,
many things.
yeah.
And again, that was a significant line later on. I mean, no
Mhm.
spoilers here, but it just kind of, uh, you know, uh, brought a calm place to even the reader's ideas about what might be going on.
Yeah, yeah,
It's like calming. Okay, so this is somewhere sorted. Whether they've planned a murder together or they haven't, this is a sorted thing. So that came across very clearly. Uh, Again, since I was, this is probably the last round of last question that I will ask before we take audience questions. And again, this whole categorization of chicklet, you've answered many questions about it to many interviewers, and I'm not going to go there. But there is one thing that I wanted to, it's an observation that maybe I see everything from a gender perspective or a gender filter, whatever it is, but there's a whole lot of loss in the book as well.
hmm, hmm.
There's a whole lot of loss, and I see victims or fallouts of a patriarchal system.
Yeah,
Not to make an academic point of it, but just a very real point. You have Bambi, who's beautiful and everything that you think, silver spoon, golden spoon, diamond encrusted spoon. But she has to marry the Prince Charming of her husband, of her parents' choosing, and not who she wants. You have Ganga, who has an abusive husband, and then once she kind of breaks free, there are all these, the whispers that shadow every single woman everywhere, right? And
yeah, yeah.
especially if you not being single at a point, it's one thing to be still single, and one thing to be single again. Huh.
Hmm.
So there is that kind of shadows her every step, and then you have Urvashi, who of course has parents who are really really conservative and strict, and a heart wrenching loss who lives with that loss for a pretty long time. So there's quite a lot of loss in this book as well, Anuja. Thoughts, or just reality?
I think that's life, right? I mean, we all, everybody, like if we sit down to write our life stories, just like my 5 decades, I will also say, okay, I have a loss here. It's again, it's like what the Buddha said, na, go to a house and bring back a flame from a house where no one has died. It's there's loss everywhere. And I think to me that's balance, right? There's also joy everywhere, there's love everywhere, which actually is not that common. But there is loss, there is suffering, there is people who've had a really hard time of it and are managing to cope one way or the other. Everybody is like, I mean, even the general is a grieving widower at the end of the
Yes,
day.
I know that also, which we
So,
don't see, and
mhm,
also the target
mhm.
of a soft conspiracy in a way, right?
Yeah, yeah. Then there is so everyone. I mean, like Bambi's dealing with Bambi shattered, right?
Yeah.
And everyone, Kashi shattered. Like, look what he's been through. And so there is that. But I think that's true for most people walking around. whether they're beautiful, privileged people or not. Everyone has. Leo's hurting. Leo's had some pretty sad things happen to him as well. So, um, which I think maybe this book is a little about, is therefore a little more shadowy, and the colors are a little, they're a little different from the ones that I usually write in. But again, the again the goal is to be authentic and to put it out there, and to look at it lightly, to look at it like, acha ho gaya, now what? Everybody is sort of, which is what Bambi says at the party. She says something when he's talking about, stoner Aryaman, and she's like, yeah, like, so what, he got a raw deal, so let him suck it up and move on, because that's what people do and that's what people should do, and that is her take on that. So I think sorrow and loss happens to everybody. It's all a question of how we deal with it and how we manage. And all of us are going around through life with 4 layers of icing on our faces to cover up the fact that the cake inside is cracked. So it's true, that we do have personas that we put on, and inside, now more than ever, everybody's hurting. And just because they're laughing and posting fabulous pictures doesn't mean that they're not hurting. You know?
Yeah, no, but you have dealt with it with a light yet, I would say, generous hand. And these are things that did come across. And of course, the other thing that came across in the way you ended things, with the ACP, getting everybody into the room, there's no other word for it but Christie-esque.
Yes, 100%. Yeah.
Yeah, that's your tribute, or like a kind of a
Yeah.
homage to
Huh, huh, huh. Yeah, totally. Yes, I love that. I love that in her books. That whole thing of the ending, and everybody's there, and he's like, you, and then he's like, you, and then he's like, you. And, I love it. So I'm like, I'm going for it, bro. I don't care. Like, say what you want. It is homage from me. And
Yeah.
I really enjoy that, reading it. So I was like, I will attempt it. Why not? Let me be absolutely audacious and really, really punching above my weight and have a bash at
No, that's fine. And the thing is, I don't believe in this punching above one's weight thing. So, and the whole thing is that, it reminded me of, it made me want to go back to my Christie's. That, okay, why
it.
can't I remember? Exactly. So that is a huge
Yeah,
achievement by itself, right?
yeah,
I mean, at least from, from the way I see it. And the fact that, it was not just that knot of the who done it or the why done it that was sorted, but so many other knots could also unraveled. You had questions about a lot of people, and they were all sort of answered. You kind of figured, why is this guy getting so much of book time? I mean, it's not screen time, but then you realize
mm,
why. But fantastic read, and I think there's nothing more that I want to really ask. Is there anything that you want to say before we take questions from the audience, Anuja? Anything you that I've missed, or you want readers to, anything?
no, not really. I'm good. I'm ready for questions. Yeah.
Okay, all right.
You've
And
done a great job. You covered everything, Sukanya.
well, I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but I knew which way. I just know that I'm waiting for Pavani Singh book two. The questions we have right now, there's this question from Sudipta Biswas. Are you afraid of being typecast in a particular genre?
Um, yeah, I suppose so. I don't know if I'm afraid, but I don't want to be. I don't think anybody should be typecast. Everybody should be allowed the freedom to explore and do whatever the hell it is they want. I resent labeling. I think it's reductionist. It puts you in a box, and it's like what they're saying every day. They're telling students, just go to college and study, don't get involved in politics. They're telling actresses, just act, don't get interested in politics. They're telling everybody that they should just, there's a lot of talk of aukat going on nowadays, about what you can talk about and what you cannot talk about, what you can wear, what opinions you can have, what are the territories that are safe and what is stuff that is really not for you. So for me, it all boils down to that. I mean, nobody wants to be put in a box. Nobody should be put in a box. Everybody should be allowed the chance to try and be whatever they want to be. And if they fail, well, they fail. It's fine, you know. So I think it's more that I resent that.
I resent that right along with you, Anuja. Uh, the second question we have is from Shashwata Ghosh. What was the thought behind writing this book? I'm guessing he means impulse or motivation. And this is a pandemic book, right? So maybe you can, while dealing with this question, maybe you can tell us how
Yeah.
this worked
Eh,
out during the pandemic.
Yeah, it took me a while to settle down to write this book, because five seemed like a nice round number. I'd written five romance novels, and it was like, okay, now what? I wasn't very sure what to do next. So instead, I wrote a couple of movies and a sort of the third, and I didn't know what to do about the book thing. And at one point, I thought maybe I'm done. Maybe now I'll just do something else. And then it had been slow cooking for a long time, and I think in January, when this whole thing started, I was a little disillusioned with the whole movie world because again it's hugely collaborative. We don't really have creative control. And so that craving again for complete creative control took me over. And so I went into a cave and said, okay, I'm writing this. And I just started. I the setting appealed to me very much because of the fact that a club is a very somehow, maybe they have this internationally, but to me it seemed like a very desi institution in Calcutta. You guys have all these really posh
Yes,
clubs. You are like, I've gone to literature to a couple of them and I know they're very snooty. So
again, if it wasn't the pandemic, we would probably be having this session in a Cal Club
in
or
a
a club.
club, right? Correct. Yeah.
We'll do
So
that. We'll do that sometime. Absolutely.
huh. Yeah, I'd love to do a session like this in a club. To me, that is, I thought a club was a great lens to examine social hierarchies and all these subtle little distinctions people make and the hypocrisies and the judgments that go on and on all the time in society. So I thought a club was a nice, loose, but not too loose kind of a setting where I could have the kind of people that I wanted. So it seemed like a good setting and something so genteel and beautiful on the surface, but like tainted. There's something murky in the waters. That seemed like a nice thing to do, which
And
is how
buried bodies.
buried bodies, gade murde. Yeah.
Why literally?
What's the Bangla for gade murde? What would you say?
Um, okay.
I don't know.
Pota Lash. Lash.
What large?
Yeah, probably. Well, I'm not. It's just, yeah, Pota Lash, something like that.
Ah, lovely.
But yes, you know, what was very interesting with the club scenario was that this whole insider outsider thing, we don't realize that there are so many people who are
Yeah.
part of the club ecosystem but aren't. And that was
Mm.
very important. How the impulse for a person to help cover up something was just that somebody behaved well with them, saw them as a
Yeah.
person,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Guppy
Yeah.
Ram, right? So,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that's so true. I mean, it's so nice that you noticed that and mentioned that because for me that was a big deal and a big clue that Gapi Ram kept saying that it is someone with whom I felt love and respect and equal friendship. So and whatever he says, it's important for him that
It
that
is.
that it, yeah, sure, I was paid, but it wasn't the money. It was just the trust and the respect, and that's why I did it, and I would do it again. So, the kind of structures that we have in our system that create bonds like this. And
So
whenever anybody reaches around the hierarchies and makes a genuine connection, that people will do anything for that connection. And that's again so Indian, you
very.
know? Yeah, yeah, yeah. So,
You have this thing about Munni again, because it's the last book that I've been reading, Battle for Pitora, where you have Munni talking about, I'm a higher caste Dalit, I'm higher up the hierarchy. And yeah, so even this supposedly marginalized sections, I mean, not supposedly, that's the wrong word to use, marginalized sections marginalize themselves further. It's the strange
yeah,
way,
yeah.
the
There is no
strange way.
one who is a bigger enemy of a person who's lower than the person who's just half an inch above.
Yeah, so that's how we strangely we seem to work. And I haven't asked you about films and screenplay writing, but there is somebody who has, And that's probably our last question for the day. Pinky Roy Chaudhary asks, if you had to cast the cop for a film series, who would you choose? And I will say, tell me who you would choose for Bambi and Akash as well. That's one dishy dude you've described there, huh?
Yeah. Well, for me, for this book, when I think about ACP Brownie or ACP Bhavani Singh, I very clearly see this actor called Gajraj Rao. I mean, to me, Gajraj Rao really sort of epitomizes
Uh,
Bhavani. To me, he looks like, I think he would look like him for sure.
okay. And
I mean, for Kashi Dogra, I don't really have a casting. I can't think of a person for Kashi Dogra, but that usually is the case with my Dishi boys. I think everybody sort of does it in their own head. Bambi Todi to me is a very Alia Bhatt kind of character, or anybody else who's tiny and
totally done.
sparkly and has lots of fire. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. And what about our Padam Kumar? Last question for you. I need to see that 6 footer in uniform on screen. I've seen
Uh,
him in my mind.
Padam
Very,
Kumar has to be someone very handsome,
I know.
yeah, Padam Kumar is very full of himself. So, and I can't think of someone bang on. But if you were making this many years ago, I would like without a heartbeat cast like a Hrithik Roshan. If we were casting this in the 90s, I'd be like, yeah, he's like, no,
There's
Hrithik
my
Roshan reporting to Kaviraj Rao.
there's my 6 footer right there. I think that about wraps it up for us today. We've kind of taken this ride along with you and actually my reading of the book, where I've found Anuja, frankly, things that I wasn't expecting. Uh, I found love, I found loss, I found reality, I found a very sharp, dispassionate eye, and yet somewhere, this base of compassion. I found quite sharp social commentary, and of course, always your inimitable style, quips,
Thank you.
flowing prose, and something that takes you along. So, all I have to say is please do give us part two of ACP Bhavani. And for all our listeners and readers, get your okay, get yourself this book. You're not going to regret it. Yes,
Yes,
yay! Next time you're in Calcutta, I have to get this signed by you. And get yourself this book. It's a hell of a ride. Thank you, Anuja. Thank you for being with us.
thanks, Sukanya. Thank you so much. Kolkata, little meet. Thanks.
We will meet absolutely club. Bye. Thank you. Thank you, everyone, and good night, and keep reading.